They were obsessed with you. Every thought, every plan, every dark whisper revolved around one goal: your downfall. But what they didn't realize is that obsession is the sign of the defeated. And when Allah chooses someone, no demon, no human, no hidden plot can touch what He protects. Every attack they launched, every scheme they whispered, every trap they set, only became a testament to your divine protection. Today, we're diving into 7 powerful lessons for the chosen ones, lessons that reveal how those who sought to destroy you only proved that Allah Himself was fighting for you, that your mission cannot be stopped, and that what was meant to harm you has already been turned into your victory. By the end of this video, you'll see clearly why nothing can defeat a servant whom Allah has chosen. When someone becomes obsessed with destroying you, it is never a reflection of your weakness, but a mirror of their own defeat. Because the heart that is tied to darkness reacts violently when it senses light, and the Qur'an teaches us that Shayṭān himself was obsessed with Adam, not out of reason, but out of envy and frustration at Allah's choice. And in the same way, those who fixated on you were powerless to stop what Allah had already decreed, so every scheme, every whisper, every attempt to manipulate or intimidate became a desperate expression of their own helplessness, a frantic dance of insecurity and fear. And while they spent sleepless nights plotting your downfall, Allah was quietly elevating you, fortifying your heart, sharpening your discernment, and purifying your intentions, because obsession is the language of the defeated. And when someone's fixation consumes them, it becomes self-destruction, leaving them exhausted, frustrated, and exposed, while you, the chosen one, continue walking forward, untouched, unstoppable, and guided, proving that divine protection cannot be matched by human malice or demonic schemes, and what they meant for harm became a testament to Allah's justice, a spiritual lesson that shows the world that when Allah chooses, no obsession can override destiny, no plot can overcome faith, and no darkness can extinguish the light of the one He has destined to shine. No matter how meticulously they planned, no matter how many dark forces they summoned, no matter how cunning their schemes, not a single attack could succeed without Allah's permission, because the entire universe moves only under His command, and the Quran reminds us that Shayṭān has no authority over the sincere servants of Allah, meaning every demonic plot, every whispered curse, every hidden trap aimed at you was already barred from harming you by the decree of the Almighty. And while they believed they were orchestrating secret victories, Allah was silently intercepting every move, redirecting every force meant to destroy you, and turning it into evidence of His protection. And what terrifies them most is not the failure of their plans, but the unseen hand that constantly shields you. For the one chosen by Allah is a fortress in human form, untouchable by schemes, untethered by obsession, and unshakable in faith. So every attempt that should have broken you instead became a testimony of divine justice, a lesson for the universe that even the darkest plots collapse when the Creator wills. And what was meant to harm you instead illuminated the undeniable truth that when Allah says no, no demon, no jealous heart, and no worldly force can ever override His protection, and in that divine denial lies not only your safety, but the unfolding of a destiny that no obsession, curse, or evil scheme could ever delay. The real battle was never against your body, your wealth, or your reputation. It was against your spirit, because those who plot in darkness instinctively sense when someone carries a light they cannot touch, a faith they cannot break, and a heart that is aligned with Allah. And so they attempted to shake you, to confuse you, to plant fear and doubt. But every attack against your inner self only became a means of divine reinforcement, because the Quran tells us that Allah strengthens the hearts of His believers when they face trials, and as they whispered, schemed and manipulated, Allah quietly fortified your resilience, sharpened your discernment, purified your intentions, and deepened your connection to Him, turning each attempt meant to destabilize you into a spiritual ladder that elevated you. So what was designed to weaken became the very tool of your growth, transforming pressure into clarity, opposition into empowerment, and darkness into illumination. And while they thought their attacks were hidden and unstoppable, every strike ricocheted into a lesson of reliance, patience, and tawakkul, proving that when Allah protects a servant, even the most concentrated spiritual assaults cannot penetrate, and that the stronger the obsession, the stronger the reinforcement, meaning their every effort to harm you has instead revealed that your spirit was never theirs to touch, because Allah had already shielded it, armored it, and destined it to thrive amidst trials, making you unbreakable, untouchable, and eternally connected to the One whose protection is absolute and whose decree cannot be denied by any force in existence. Those who watched you, studied your every move, and tracked your steps, believed they could uncover weakness, manipulate outcomes, and orchestrate your downfall. But what they failed to understand is that Allah, the all-knowing, sees what they cannot, and He transforms every act of obsession against His chosen servants into a tool of justice, a mirror reflecting the darkness of the oppressor back onto themselves. For when someone is under divine protection, even their enemies' attempts to spy, plot, or intimidate are redirected to serve the very purpose of fortifying the one He has chosen. Their eyes, their schemes, their whispered conspiracies become chains, binding them to their own doom, while Allah shields the servant of His will, turning each surveillance into a spiritual lesson. For the more they focused on you, the more they exposed their intentions, revealing not only the depth of their envy, but also the futility of acting against someone whose heart and mission are aligned with the Almighty. And the Quran reminds us that those who oppose the believers with hidden plots are themselves being recorded, and every plan they devise without righteousness becomes a testimony of their own corruption. So while they thought they were gaining ground, Allah was orchestrating their exposure, unraveling their secrets, and preparing consequences for what they had intended to inflict. And this divine orchestration teaches a profound truth. The obsession of the enemy is never neutral. It either strengthens the oppressed under Allah's protection or ensures the collapse of the oppressor under their own schemes, and what they aim to use to intimidate, mislead, or destroy you instead became the exact mechanism that showcased their weakness, their moral bankruptcy, and their spiritual blindness, while you, the chosen one, walked untouched, guided, and illuminated, growing stronger with each passing moment, because Allah does not merely protect His servants from harm. He transforms the intentions of their enemies into lessons of vindication, elevation, and proof that divine justice cannot be bypassed, and that no amount of observation, no army of spies, no clandestine plan can ever harm the one whose destiny is under the decree of the Almighty, showing the world, silently yet unmistakably, that what is meant to destroy can never touch the chosen one, because Allah has already declared the outcome. Your silence was never weakness. It was a divine weapon, a reflection of the strength, patience, and unwavering faith that Allah has planted within the hearts of His chosen servants, because when the world attempts to provoke you, when people whisper, scheme, accuse, manipulate, and plot against you in secrecy, responding hastily only fuels their obsession, only feeds their illusions, and only gives life to their malice. But silence, when combined with deep trust in Allah, transforms every attack into a mirror that reflects their true intentions, their moral corruption, and their spiritual impotence. And the Qur'an reminds us that those who place their reliance entirely upon Allah will find their paths illuminated, their hearts fortified, and their missions guided, while the schemes of the envious, the obsessed, and the malicious collapse upon themselves. And this is precisely what occurred in your journey. Every attempt to destabilize you, every curse, every rumor, every hidden whisper, every plot designed to harm your reputation, mislead your mission, or shake your faith failed. Not because the attacks lacked potency, not because the enemy lacked cunning, but because Allah empowered your silence, amplified your patience, and fortified your restraint, so that your quietness spoke louder than arguments, louder than accusations, louder than the chaos they intended to create, turning every action you withheld in calm contemplation into a shield around your spirit, an invisible fortress that neutralized their schemes, deflected their obsessions, and reflected the futility of their attempts back into their own hearts, teaching them, whether they were conscious of it or not, that a servant chosen by Allah cannot be shaken by envy, cannot be manipulated by deception, and cannot be broken by fear, because the depth of your faith, the purity of your intention, and the magnitude of your patience are gifts that no human or demonic force can ever measure or overcome. And as you remained steadfast, composed, and unwavering, Allah expanded your spiritual presence, sharpened your wisdom, refined your discernment, and illuminated your path in ways they could neither comprehend nor obstruct, making it clear that every scheme, every demonic whisper, and every human plot aimed at your destabilization became a testament to His protection, an affirmation of your divine purpose, and an undeniable proof that what others intended for harm only served to highlight your mission, your resilience, and your elevation. And this is why your restraint was never inaction. It was the loudest declaration of strength possible, showing the world that true power is not measured by reaction, confrontation, or retaliation, but by unshakable faith, intentional patience, and the ability to surrender completely to Allah's will, allowing Him to orchestrate the outcome, guide the process, and protect what He has chosen. And in this profound silence lies both vindication and elevation, because what you did not answer in anger, what you did not confront in haste, and what you did not justify under pressure, Allah not only defended but magnified, protected, and turned into a fortress of proof, demonstrating beyond doubt that your silence was a shield no attack could pierce, a sword no enemy could wield, and a declaration that those whom Allah chooses are untouchable when they trust in Him, and that every malicious act, every envy-driven plan, and every obsessive attempt meant to harm you was in fact an instrument of divine justice, a mirror of the futility of opposition, and a signpost pointing unmistakably to the perfection of Allah's plan, the inevitability of His decree, and the unstoppable destiny of the one He has chosen to walk in His light, untouchable, elevated, and eternally guided. Everything that was ever intended to harm you, to shake your foundation, to mislead your steps, to disrupt your mission, and to humiliate your name, was never outside the all-seeing knowledge of Allah, for He is Al-Kabir, the all-aware, the one who perceives what is hidden in the hearts, what is whispered in the shadows, and what is plotted in secret. And what the Qur'an teaches us is that no soul is burdened beyond what Allah has decreed, and no scheme can succeed without His permission, which means that even the darkest, most obsessive plots designed against you, whether conjured by humans, influenced by Shayṭān, or whispered in envy by the hearts of the jealous, were all carefully monitored, weighed, and measured by the perfectly just, the one who sees the hidden and hears the unheard. And what the enemy meant for destruction, shame, and chaos was transformed into a testimony of their own corruption, their own obsession, and their own spiritual weakness. For the closer they fixated on you, the more they exposed themselves to the light of divine justice. And every trap, every whispered lie, every secret conspiracy, and every attempt to manipulate circumstances to their advantage became a record against them, a spiritual fingerprint that reflected not your vulnerability, but their own impotence. And while they were busy orchestrating attacks, calculating outcomes, and seeking openings to harm you, Allah was orchestrating their own exposure, ensuring that every step they took toward you was a step toward their own unraveling. And this is the profound wisdom of divine protection. What is sent as an attempt to harm the chosen one is never wasted, never lost, and never silent, because Allah turns every intention of the wicked into evidence of their failure, a lesson for the world, and a proof that His chosen servants are untouchable when they walk in alignment with His decree. And as they plotted in secrecy, obsessively focusing on your life, your decisions, and your trajectory, every plan that was supposed to destabilize you, every strategy that should have caused disruption, every curse that should have broken your spirit, instead became a shield, a lesson, and a witness against them, exposing their moral corruption, their envy, their obsession, and their ultimate impotence in the face of divine will. And the irony of their obsession is that the more they sought to control, manipulate, and attack you, the more Allah amplified your strength, clarity, patience, and spiritual authority, turning their attempts at harm into the very evidence that illuminated your protection, your elevation, and your destiny, so that what they intended as destruction became the instrument of their own humiliation and the confirmation of your divine favor, and every whisper, plot, and curse that should have undone you instead served to strengthen your reliance on Allah, to deepen your understanding of His wisdom, and to magnify the reality that a servant chosen by Allah is never truly in the hands of the enemy, because even when darkness surrounds, even when opposition rages, and even when the forces of evil unite against the one He loves, divine decree prevails, turning the very tools of aggression into signs of vindication, proof of justice, and testimony of protection. And this principle repeats in the unseen, where every intention, action, and obsession against the chosen one is meticulously recorded, not to empower the enemy, but to ensure that when the time comes, the consequences of their actions are undeniable, that the obsession itself becomes their downfall, and that the one they sought to destroy emerges stronger, wiser, and untouched, standing as a living monument of Allah's protection and divine orchestration, showing the universe that nothing, no matter how obsessive, malicious, or demonic, can interfere with what Allah has decreed. and that the chosen one is always elevated, preserved, and guided, because what was sent to harm has been transformed into the greatest evidence of victory, the most profound proof of divine justice, and the clearest sign that Allah's protection is absolute, unfailing, and eternal, leaving the obsessed, the envious, and the malicious to face the consequences of their own schemes, while you continue in strength, peace, clarity, and illumination, walking forward with the certainty that nothing can undo what Allah has ordained, that every act of harm against you is recorded as evidence against the perpetrator, and that every plan meant to destroy you only confirms the reality that a chosen one, guided, protected, and elevated by Allah, cannot be touched, harmed, or defeated, and what others send as a weapon of malice becomes a mirror of their own failure, obsession, and spiritual weakness, while your faith, patience, and divine favor remain untarnished, unshaken, and unstoppable, proving without a doubt that what was intended as harm has instead immortalized the evidence of Allah's protection, the futility of opposition, and the unstoppable destiny of the one He has chosen to fulfill His plan. You were never meant to be destroyed, never meant to fall, never meant to be diminished by the obsessions, plots, or whispers of those who sought to end you, because from the moment Allah chose you, He enveloped you in protection that no darkness could penetrate, no obsession could circumvent, and no demonic plan could alter. And the Qur'an reminds us that Allah is the best of protectors, the guardian over all things, and when He declares protection over His servant, even the forces of the unseen, the schemes of the envious, and the plots of the obsessed are powerless to interfere. So every curse directed at you, every hidden plan, every attack in the shadows, and every conspiracy aimed at weakening your spirit only highlighted the reality that you are under divine guardianship, and this is the profound secret of the chosen ones. What was designed to destroy them always becomes a means of elevation, vindication, and divine testimony, and while others believed they could manipulate fate, obstruct your path, or harm your mission, Allah meticulously orchestrated every detail of your journey, ensuring that every effort against you failed, every scheme collapsed, and every attempt to bring you down became evidence of the futility of opposing divine will, and as they plotted obsessively, they were unaware that every act intended to harm you was quietly being transformed into proof of their own failure, a mirror reflecting their obsession, weakness, and spiritual blindness, while you, untouched, undeterred, and steadfast, continued to fulfill your purpose, guided by divine decree and strengthened by the unseen, invisible hand of Allah. And this protection is not passive, it is active, dynamic, and comprehensive, encompassing every dimension of your existence, guarding your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, your mission, and your destiny, so that what they meant to use as weapons against you became nothing more than confirmation that you are chosen, elevated, and preserved for a purpose that no human obsession or demonic influence can disrupt. And the more they tried to interfere, the clearer it became that their obsession was not a threat to you, but a reflection of their own defeat and impotence. For the chosen one is never measured by the attacks against them, but by the divine protection, guidance, and favor that Allah bestows, and every dark intention, every secret plot, every whispered scheme aimed at destroying you was meticulously recorded, preserved, and transformed into evidence that validates your path, confirms your resilience, and proves that you are walking under the canopy of Allah's perfect decree. And this is why nothing they send can touch you, because Allah's protection is absolute, His timing flawless, and His guardianship all-encompassing, meaning that every attack, every attempt at manipulation, every curse, and every act of obsession becomes a tool that showcases your elevation, while exposing the futility, obsession, and moral corruption of those who try to harm you. And the more they raged in secrecy, the more their schemes backfired, reinforcing the reality that a servant chosen by Allah cannot be destroyed, cannot be shaken, and cannot be outmaneuvered. And in this divine orchestration lies the ultimate lesson. What others intend for harm only becomes the instrument of vindication, elevation, and spiritual proof that the chosen one is eternally protected, eternally guided, and eternally destined to fulfill the mission Allah placed in their heart, so that when the dust settles, when the whispers fade, when the plots collapse, the world can see clearly that you were never meant to be destroyed, that nothing can stand against the hand of Allah, and that every attempt to harm you has already been turned into evidence of your divine protection, your unshakable faith, and the unstoppable path of the one He has chosen, leaving those obsessed with your downfall trapped in their own schemes while you rise, preserved, victorious, illuminated, and unstoppable, walking forward with certainty, clarity, and unwavering reliance on the one whose protection is absolute, whose decree is perfect, and whose chosen servant is never alone, never weak, and never vulnerable to the obsessions, attacks, or darkness of anyone or anything in existence, proving once and for all that divine protection is real, invincible, and eternal, and that the chosen one is forever shielded, elevated, and unstoppable by the will of Allah alone. If you've been watching closely, you now see the truth. The obsession, the plots, the whispers, and the attacks were never signs of your weakness. They were signs of your elevation. Allah chose you, and His protection cannot be broken, His decree cannot be denied, and His plan for you cannot be obstructed by anyone or anything. Every attempt meant to harm you only confirmed your status as a chosen one. Every scheme against you became evidence of divine justice, and every attack turned into a lesson of resilience, patience, and unwavering faith. Remember this: you are under the canopy of Allah's protection, guided by His wisdom, and destined for a path that no darkness can derail. So walk boldly, trust deeply, and remain steadfast, because what the enemy intended for destruction has already been transformed into your victory, your strength, and your testimony. Let these 7 powerful lessons stay with you: that obsession is the language of the defeated, that every plot requires Allah's permission, that your spirit cannot be broken, that surveillance against you only exposes the oppressor, that silence is a weapon stronger than any attack, that harm turned into evidence against them, and that you were never meant to be destroyed because Allah's protection surrounds you at all times. Stand firm, chosen one, and let the world witness the unstoppable power of one whom Allah Himself protects.